Brian, am I able to share the screen? Have you given me permission? Yeah?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You've been made co-host, so you should be able to share.
Yeah, so I can. Okay, I will switch to PowerPoint. So I'm going to begin with PowerPoint, then we're going to go right into the website. We're going to use the iNat website and do some stuff. So the program, as I said, this is called the BC Parks iNaturalist project. It basically documents and celebrates British Columbia's biodiversity, and it's being led by Brian Starzomski from the University of Victoria and myself. And Brian and I have a lot of similarities, including being very obsessed naturalists, and so this really works for us. And so we are collaborating with BC Parks on this, the provincial government, and they have helped fund it for the past 2 years, and we're hoping that we'll continue into the future. And also the BC Parks Foundation, which is the citizen group that is supporting BC Parks in its endeavors. They've been responsible for a lot of the publicity that and materials that we've been producing to help to spread the word about BC Parks and how iNaturalist can help us to understand what is in these parks. So I'm going to begin with a fairly lengthy introduction to iNaturalist, because what I'm going to be talking about goes way beyond what we're doing in BC Parks. And then I'll talk about the BC Parks program specifically. So iNaturalist is a collaboration between the California Academy of Sciences and National Geographic. It's been around for a dozen years or so or less. And it's a website and a free app that you can download onto your phone as well, which is used worldwide. And it's a way of sharing photos of wild plants, animals, and fungi. It's a great way to learn to identify species because it has an automatic recognition feature where it will suggest the identification of things. And it's also a really fun way to keep track of what you've seen. It's like a photo album where the information, the locations, the dates, and so on are all there. So it's a great way just to keep track of what you've seen during your meanderings outside. So I'm going to switch over now, and I'm going to go straight to the site. Oh, I've got one of these things I have to move out of my way. Just the toolbar here is in my way. I think that'll get it there. Okay, so here's a map. I'm now on their site, so this is sort of live. This is a map of the observations around the world that have been put into this platform. You can see that they have about 53 million observations of 300,000 species. And these observations have been uploaded by 1.4 million people. And another 166,000 people have contributed toward helping to identify the photos that have been uploaded. So when you upload a photo, if you can't identify it, other people will look at it and suggest what they think it is, or they will verify your identification as well. So you can see it's got some pretty good coverage, and very big in the States, very big in South America as well. Europe, it's growing, and you know, many countries have sort of taken it on and made their own platforms for it, and really embraced the program. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the 3 key buttons at the top here: explore, your observations, and community. So when you get an account in iNaturalist, these are all what you see. And so I'll just go through one by one and tell you some of the things that you can do with it. And in fact, I'm going to ask if somebody, maybe I'll put Victoria on the spot, since she so often puts me on the spot. Victoria, if you want to unmute and just name a species for me, please. Any species at all, we'll have a look at it.
Pygmy owl.
Okay, great. So that's, northern pygmy owl. There it is. You see it auto-filled. I didn't even get to finish typing it. Here is the distribution of northern pygmy owls as recorded by iNaturalist. Okay, interesting. All the way down into, it looks like they're all the way into into Mexico, which I did not know. They must be up in mountainous regions, perhaps. And so there's their distribution. You can see that iNaturalist has collected 738 observations of northern pygmy owl by 492 people. If you want to, you can zoom in a little here. Let's look at the ones that have been seen in Vancouver. So I can restrict it to Vancouver. So there they are. These are the observations that have been made in the Vancouver region of pygmy owls. Pygmy owl is an interesting one because some people might not put it onto iNaturalist because they don't want people to come and harass them trying to get good photos and so on. So it's probably a little bit underrepresented, but I'll talk more about obscuring locations in a minute. So let's zoom in a little here and see what we've got. Here's one in Manakata. You know, that's probably mine. You're going to think this is rigged. Nope, it's not mine. Good. Okay. So there it is. And I can click on it and I can see that photo. So there it is. It's done by this person. And oh, look at the size of the vole that it's got here. The vole is bigger than it is there. So can you see that? Let me show you bigger. Look at that. Very nice photo. So there's the location. It's a little inexact in exactly where it was, but it looks like it was probably in Manakata. It was observed on February 6th, 2016, and it was submitted to iNaturalist 4 years later. And so this person said it's a pygmy owl. Someone else came in and said, yes, I agree, it's a pygmy owl, and also made a comment. Great photo, impressive it can take prey that large. And someone else agrees it's a pygmy owl. Because people have agreed that it's a pygmy owl, that observation gets what's called a research grade rating, meaning that it has been verified by other people. So this then will go into the database as marked as something that researchers could use and that it's a verified observation. If you disagreed with it, I could suggest something else. I could go here and suggest a different identification if I thought it was wrong, but it's clearly correct. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to agree. Not that they need more agreement, because some people have already turned it into a research grade observation, and now it shows that I agreed with it. So that's just an example how you can see an individual observation. I'm going to, I'll zoom back out a little bit here to, again, the map and the distribution. And so you can have a lot of fun with this. You can see where things are being seen. And the other thing I could do is I could go to the actual species and I could learn a bit about it. So if I go to a grid, here are the photos that have been put in, by the way. This is all in Greater Vancouver. Those are people's photos. And if you want to learn more about pygmy owl, I can click on the name of it. And that's the observation. But if I click on it again, this is like its homepage, okay? This is the homepage of pygmy owl. So look at, this is the phenology when people see it. You can see it's very much a winter bird here. You're not gonna find it in the summer unless you're lucky and go up a mountain. And then it shows up again in the fall. So it's a winter bird. And again, here's again, all the locations that people have been seeing it. I could learn a bit about it. Here it is. There's information about the pygmy owl with references, and this is from Wikipedia. I could ask, what are the similar species? Here are species commonly misidentified in Canada. Northern saw-whet owl. Of course, that would be the one that they would mention. Merlin, it's a bit difficult to mix up a merlin and a pygmy owl, but that's the second most commonly misidentified species. So you can learn a lot about these species, as well, including, you know, where they're actually found. Now, you'll notice these locations are mapped, okay? And you might be a little concerned, as I mentioned, with something like a pygmy owl, that you don't want necessarily to draw a lot of attention, because sometimes people are not as kind to that people don't think about the welfare of the bird if they're trying to get photos or to watch it. You can, when you upload it, you can obscure the location. There's a box you can tick, or you can make it a big bubble, make it a larger bubble, and then it won't be as clear where it was. But let's suppose we really want to be nasty. Let's suppose I'm going to type in Taylor's checker spot. Okay, a butterfly. Oh, it's not found in, I got to get rid of that. It's not found in Greater Vancouver. We have 30 observations. Let's stick to make sure I'm staying in British Columbia. Yeah, now I've got 8 of them. Okay, there are 8 observations of this very rare species in Vancouver. In British Columbia. Let's suppose I'm a collector and I want to go and collect this thing. And so I could look at the map, and can I use the map to go and find out where they are? Well, let's have a look. Here's where they are currently mapped. Let's click on one. There's one there. So I'm going to use this now to go and find it, but I won't, because look at that. iNaturalist has obscured its location. This means that it's found somewhere in a box that big, and it randomly put the location somewhere in that big box. So I cannot pinpoint where these are found. Okay, so it's critically endangered. See that? Critically endangered. iNaturalist knows that because the province of British Columbia, the people in the Conservation Data Center who work for the provincial government, have declared it to be critically endangered, which it is in Canada, and they've obscured the locations. So you cannot get right to it. They do take care of things, but that doesn't mean you still shouldn't be careful about what locations. There could be species that are not necessarily endangered, but if you still think that they could be subject to persecution, maybe a snake hibernaculum or something like that, well, then you clearly would want to think twice about putting it into iNaturalist or to hide its actual location. So that's, I've got this annoying bar here in my way all the time. I'm going to move it away. That's Explore. And we can leave it at that. I will just say that there's many other things you can do with this. You've got these filters. I could again, let's look at British Columbia. If I want to quickly hit filters, I could look at mollusks in British Columbia. And there they are. These are mollusk observations in British Columbia. Lots you can do there. So that's that one. Now let's look at your observations. So that's what it sounds like. These are observations I've made. And so these are locations around the world where I put in photos. Some of these would be from some time ago. You can digitally scan your slides and put them in, as long as you know the location and the date. You do have to have that. You have to map it, and you can stick it on the map. They have a very good mapping function, and so that will tell you. So this shows your recent observations and species and so on. One of the things you can use it for is, if you're like me, you may forget the name of something, and you think, what was that? Now, what was the species of swallowtail that I saw last summer or whatever, right? Was it Western tiger swallowtail? Was it Canadian swallowtail or whatever? So you could simply say swallowtails. There's the, well, I'll do the whole group here. And I could say, so there are the swallowtails that I've seen, but I knew it was in Vancouver. So I'll go back to Greater Vancouver. And there they are. There's the swallowtails I've seen. I can see them all right here. And then you can see I've seen 3 species in Vancouver, and there's pale swallowtail. It's Western tiger, not Canadian. That's the one that I sometimes have to remember which is which. They're not actually found here, I think, on the coast. And one Annis swallowtail. And if you want to remember where that was, oops, that's the wrong button to hit. Oh no, that's it. So now I'm looking at, oh yeah, it was on Boundary Bay, right? Oh, it was September 2014, and I uploaded it 5 years later. And here's how it went down. Rob Cannings, one of Western Canada's top entomologists, in fact, verified the identification, and I don't know, Richard Wasson. So it's just like what I mean. This is what I mean about it being sort of a photo album of things you've seen. You can jog your memory about plants or whatever you happen to be interested in. And again, you can use all the same filters and all the same locations. If I want to see the whatever those are, spiders that I've seen in, let's zoom out. I think I'm a bit zoomed in here. Oh, I'm in the world now. But if I want to see the spiders that I've seen in British Columbia, there they are, maybe. Oh, I must have a filter going that I don't want. What did I do? I've got an extra filter on here. I'm not sure what I put in that doesn't. Oh, I see. Because I'm still on swallowtails. Okay, took the swallowtails off there. Those would be spiders that I've seen in British Columbia. 36 species of spider, and here they are. All the different spiders that I've put in. Most of which I must say I had no clue what they were. You don't have to know when you put them in. People can help you with that. So let's talk about that. Let's take this now to the level of saying, how do you actually get your observations into iNaturalist? Well, I prefer to upload from my laptop. You can do it from the phone with photos you've taken through the app, but when I take photos with my phone, I have an iPhone, I just use the iPhone photos, and then I'll download them to my app, to my laptop, and then I put them up from there. Or if I use my big camera, it has a GPS with it, so that's helpful. But if you don't have a GPS, then that's okay. You can just map it yourself. But if you use your phone and you have your location services turned on, then your phone will map it for you. It will have the coordinates, and you don't have to do any work to map it. The mapping information will go with it. So let me show you what I mean. We'll go to upload. So I'm going to drag and drop some photos that I took at Colony Farm a few days ago. So where am I? Oh, these are them. Okay, so these are photos. You can see I've got no names on them at all. I haven't labeled them yet. I usually do, but for the demo here, I'm not doing that. Select them, drag, and I drop. Okay. And we just let iNaturalist load them up, and here are the photos. And you can see there's no names in these because I didn't type any names. If I'd put a name on them, on my laptop, the name would have gone with it. But look at this. It knew the date and time because those were date and time stamped they came with it, with the information from the photo. I didn't have to type that in. And it knows that I was in Coquitlam. I did type in that it was in Colony Farm, but that's not what it's going by. It's going by your GPS. So for example, if I click on this, there it's mapped them all. These were in Colony Farm, and I had one thing in Coquitlam this morning that I've also thrown in here. So it's mapped them by itself without me doing anything. Now, what about the names? I think you know what that one is, a widgeon, a female widgeon, American widgeon. And suppose I didn't know. I'm just going to click on species name. I'm just going to tap that. It's loading some suggestions, and its first suggestion is that it's an American widgeon. It's been seen nearby. That helps narrow it down. And if it isn't that, it thinks it's a Eurasian widgeon. That's its second guess. And if it's not that, it's thinking gadwall. So you can see it's in the right zone here. African black duck, that might be a bit of a stretch. But it got it right. Its first suggestion is correct. And so if I like that idea, I can just tap it, and there's the name, and that's it for that species. How about this one? Now we've got a dragonfly. The fact that I took it in this late in the year is a hint. One other thing I want to show you. This is a pond hawk, and it's got a pale leg. See the yellow legs here, yellowish legs, not black legs. So that all makes it pretty distinctive. And if I ask it, it will say it's an meadowhawk. It suggests autumn meadowhawk, and that's correct. See, it's similar. It's been seen nearby. Suppose I want to know more about it. I'm going to just tap on view. Well, let's view it. It's there's its sort of home page. These will give you look at that pale leg. See the yellow legs there? That really helps. Here's the time that it's seen. It is indeed late. It's one of the latest dragonflies we have, so it's certainly in the zone. If that phenology was earlier, I'd be nervous. And I can say, lookalikes. There I can compare it with the lookalikes. And again, I can see the map. And this is important because then I can say, well, are they even found here? And indeed, They certainly are. So I'm going to go back to it, and I'm good with autumn meadowhawk. I'm going to accept that. This one, I think you recognize this, brown creeper. And it's a, oh, look at that. Oh, that's great. Okay, we fooled iNat. I can't believe it. It went for Eurasian tree creeper instead of brown creeper. I was positive that would not happen. I was about to say it always gets the birds right. Let's look at that. Let's look at, so you can tell I haven't done this. This is this is the experience you get. Let's look at Eurasian tree creeper. Okay, I mean, they do look alike, a lot alike. But if you look at the map, look where they're found. I'm really surprised that it went for that, because the fact that it hasn't been, that the other one, that brown creeper, has been seen nearby, normally puts it high enough in the rankings that it would get it. So that's cool. We stumped it. We got the, so you've got to be careful. It's a brown creeper, I assure you. Well, maybe not. Maybe I've got the ornithological find of the decade, but I think I'm going to be more humble than that, and I'm going to go with it. So that's that. This is a dragonfly, which is a species of hoverfly, and that's correct. It is a common dragonfly. So it got the fly right. And this one, so there's been a Eurasian widgeon hanging around Colony Farm for a little while. It's in one of the ditches there. That was new for my Colony Farm list, actually. It had been there for a bit. And so, yes, thank goodness it got it right. Now look at, I've got two photos of it. So if you got two photos of the same individual, you can combine them. So it doesn't think there were two different widgeon, right? So I'm going to click on the two together, and I'm going to go combine. And now two photos will be uploaded for that one observation. That's a very good thing to do. A lot of plants, you might want multiple photos of different angles, the leaves, the stem, the flower, combine them afterward. This was, yeah, I took this morning. You can call it balsam. This is an awkward one, balsam poplar or black cottonwood. Some people think they're subspecies of each other, and people seem to be not really, either name seems to be sort of okay. And so it's a bit of a mess. And there's nice pair of pied-bill grebes on the pond in Colony Farm. And of course it got that right. Now here's a bad photo of a red-tailed hawk. Let's see if it can ID that. Nope. Nope, it actually is going for the wrong species. It's going for Swainson's hawk. So we fooled it twice now. So this just tells you that it's a work in progress. So what happens is that about twice a year, the automatic, this sort of artificial intelligence system they use, trains itself on verified photos. And if there are a lot of photos that are verified, it's better at recognizing species. So mosses, it's going to make a lot of mistakes. Fungi, it'll make a lot of mistakes, unless they're really common and distinctive. Birds, it usually does way better. In fact, I can't actually think of another time. Well, I don't usually use the photo recognition with birds, but this is, usually I have to work hard to stump the auto recognition when I'm doing a demo like this. I usually have to take a blurry photo of a plant or something, but it did actually get red-tailed hawk and brown creeper wrong. So these are done. I hope you can see that if you'd already put the names on it, you could drag 100 photos on at once. Just wait a little while and then just upload them all at once. So you can do this very quickly. I've belabored it, you know, to take you through one at a time like that. So I'm going to submit them. Still smoldering over that Eurasian tree creeper. I'll always wonder. Excuse me. And so there they are, and you can just see them as a grid. So you can just double check that there were no glitches in the upload. There they are now, and so these are now part of the iNaturalist universe. Okay, so that's how you upload. So again, I just wanted to tell you, I use my phone a lot for plants and insects and things. I just use the app. I don't use the app. Okay, I don't bother with the app. I prefer to wait until I get home and download them to my laptop and then upload them, because I don't want to be staring at my phone when I'm out in the field trying to enjoy nature. I just use it as a camera, take the shot, and then at the end I just download them to my laptop, and then upload them to iNaturalist. And if I'm using my big camera, well, same sequence. When I'm home, upload them from there. There is an app, you can shoot through the app and upload them then. You'll use a little bit of data, which is fine if you're just taking 1 or 2 photos, but I find that it's more efficient and works for me, that not to be on my phone, all the time, and actually staring at the thing when I'm in the field. Okay. Before I go on to the next button here, which is community, I could actually just take a moment, if Brian, if you like, we could see if there are any questions. I can't see the audience. I guess none of us can, but if there's anything in the chat or anything like that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. We can always, maybe it's easier for people if we save them to the end. I don't mind. Okay, so I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah. Victoria here.
Yeah.
I don't see anything and no questions in the chat, John.
Okay.
So let's just say
there is a question in the chat.
Sorry, there is now. Yeah.
Yes, from David Montenay. Do you use eBird also, or do you use just iNaturalist?
Yeah, I use eBird too. And so for the birds that I photograph, I put them into eBird as well as into iNaturalist. Because eBird is another hobby, and I like to throw the photos in there too. But that reminds me to say that all of the data from iNaturalist and eBird and many other citizen science programs are collected by a single mothership of citizen science and other data, which is called GBIF, which is the Global Biodiversity Information Facility run by the UN. So these data, whether you submit them through iNaturalist or eBird or Bumblebee Watch or many other programs, those will all end up going up to the mothership, as I think of it, and then researchers can download the data. So I like to use both because eBird is another one of my hobbies. And if I'm going to, if I have a photo a bird photo, it takes, 2 minutes to throw them into eBird as well.
I've got another question here as well.
Sure.
Jay asks, will it accept videos? And I want to add, will it accept audio, such as bat calls?
It does not accept videos yet. It does do audios. So bat calls are fine. Bird calls, frog calls, those are all no problem at all. And so, and I don't know how easily I can, probably can't come up with one, two. Let me try to think of last time I recorded a semi-decent bird call, but let me just try a random. I know I have, so I record them with my phones. Oh, there you go. So there's a bird, there's a Western tanager, and I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this, maybe if I crank my volume way up, but there it is, and I'll just play it now. Were you able to hear that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So so it is good for bird calls and bats. Sure, no problem. So you can see I seem to have lots of tanagers. They're sometimes easier to hear than to see. It's a great question.
If you have time, we have another question here from Catherine.
Yes.
How close to the object is needed in order for it to be identified?
Well, it depends on what it is. It can be surprisingly good at bad photos. So there's no rule, and there's no rule with it. I have put in some very distant birds, and it's done fine with it. So
what I'm thinking of, John, is in the example that if you've got a bird and some foliage, and the bird's fairly small, will it identify the foliage rather than the bird?
It depends. Normally, it gets the bird. Like, here's one where it's obscured, but you can see that it's, the subject was obviously this. If the bird is really obscured by foliage, it may struggle. But it's surprisingly good at picking things out. What it's trained on is other photos that people have taken of that bird or plant. And so as long as it's had some other examples to learn from, it's surprisingly good at birds, despite the 2 mistakes that it just made now. But so it's variable. But again, I would recommend that if you take a couple of different photos from different angles, if you're able, especially of plants, you then can, ask it, then it'll have a better shot at you figuring out what the answer is.
Very good. And perhaps we have time for just one more question, then we can let you continue.
No problem. Yep.
Okay, Stacy would like to know, does it recognize the audio and tell you what species it is, as well as photographic recognition?
I don't think it does. I don't think so. I can't remember if I've ever tried it, to be honest. So it's a good question. But, you could try that. You could, record a chickadee tomorrow just with your phone and try uploading it and see how that goes. I don't think it does. That's a good question, though. Yeah.
Very good. Okay, then. Thank you very much for the excellent questions.
Yeah, those are great questions. I appreciate that. So I'm going to go on to the last button before we then sort of zoom in on the community, on the parks project that I wanted to talk about as an example of using this. So community is a great option. You can learn, you can see people, and the one I particularly want to talk about is projects. This is a very important and really helpful tool in iNaturalist. So if I click projects, you can search for projects. So I'm going to search for Colony Farm. You can see I was there recently. It auto-filled it. Let's look at Colony Farm. It offers me this one, which is correct. And here is a project that I created for Colony Farm. And what that does is it brings together automatically all of the photographs that were ever taken in Colony Farm, and it puts them all in one place. So here you can read about it. I wrote a little blurb about it. I put a banner photo in. I actually did this in partnership with Metro Vancouver Parks. So they told me which logo they wanted me to do, and you can read more about it and so on. But here we go. Let's get right to the map. There's Colony Farm. And these are the observations people have made. And I would hasten to add that these observations that are not on a trail are not because people walked off the trail necessarily. In my case, if I knew the bird was like over on the pond over here, move the observation on the map over to be in the correct location. So we've got 2,500 observations of 530 species in Colony Farm. And it'll list, these are the ones I just uploaded, right? So those are the most recent observations. We just did those, right? And so those are all there. And you can see the leaderboard for observers, most species and things. There you go. The brown-lipped or grove snail is the most observed species. It's kind of interesting. We'd never have guessed that, actually. And you can see all kinds of stats about it. If you want to know exactly how many of different groups people are getting. Oops, what did I just do? There we go. Here's a breakdown. So we've got 262 species of plants, which it tells me is 50%. You may not be able to read this. What are these? Insects, 81 species of insects, 117 species of birds, 16 species of mammals. I could click on that, and 16 seems like a lot, doesn't it? Those are all the observations that have been made. If I click by species, there they are. These are the species that have been seen. Colony Farm, listed by the most often observed one is otter, not surprisingly. If you go down, somebody managed to identify a shrew to species, which is good. And look at that, a short-tailed weasel. We've had one snowshoe hare. One person's said human. That observation probably won't last long. You can flag things like that, creeping vole, and so on. So that's a good way to find out, if you want to know what's in Colony Farm. And I'll just mention, and so we've got these projects. I've created quite a few. Laurie Austin, our BMN member, just created one for Como Lake on behalf of the Burke Mountain Naturalists, and that grabbed all the observations in Como Lake. And I'm going to go back to looking at projects. If you wanted to know all of that's why I guessed what I was going to type because I was just there. Metro Vancouver Parks. You can go to Metro Vancouver Parks, regional, all of the parks in Metro Vancouver. This is a site I created. The people in Metro Parks gave me the files for the maps of all of the parks, and I've created an umbrella project, which means that all of the individual Metro Vancouver parks are all under one roof here. And this shows us that we have 30,000 observations in Metro Vancouver parks and regional area greenways, 2,100 species. Here's the leaderboard. Burnaby Lake is winning, edging out Pacific Spirit. On a beach, there's Belcarra, Colony Farm, we were just there, and on down. You can see all of the parks listed, and there's a map of them all. And again, you can look at the stats and the observations. So, it means Metro Parks people can now find out what 30,000 observations of species that are in their parks. And if I wanted to, the other thing I can do here is I can go to these observations and I can search with a filter to see what threatened species. They're the threatened species that are found in parks. Okay, and these include threatened at the provincial level or federal level or global level. So we have 96 threatened species in our Metro Vancouver park system. Okay, so that brings me to the thing I wanted to tell you most about was our BC Parks project. So this is the thing that Brian Starzomski and I just saw it, created in partnership with BC Parks. And every provincial park in every park in the province and every conservancy, ecological reserve has a project, a separate location that we created for it. And here's the umbrella. This is what it looks like. And this is a photo I took on the Howe Sound Crest Trail. And this gives you your overview. We're over 250,000. We just passed 250,000 observations. We had a little Zoom party a couple of weeks ago with the staff at BC Parks, closing in on 7,000 species by an awful lot of people. Here's the leaderboard. Strathcona's winning. Manning is second, South Okanagan, and so on. And you can do the same thing again if you want to learn, what species are there that are threatened. We can do that. And so for the first time, we have this ability to harness, the 43, almost 44,000 observers who are putting in these observations, often not even knowing necessarily what they are. And we're able to pull those together and to tell BC Parks people basically what's in their parks and where, and then to try to help them to inform some of their management plans. So I think at this point, I'm going to switch over now back to PowerPoint and pick up the story from there. I'm relieved not to be relying on the web now, and I'm going to go to some things I've produced in PowerPoint. So we've hired a team, teams of people, young naturalists in each of the last 2 summers to go out, and we paid them to go out and take observations in provincial parks. Last summer, we had 98 applications. We ended up hiring a core team of 4 people, and then we managed to find some funds to hire a few more people to go out for shorter trips. And so here's the team in the first summer. They're with one of the park rangers as well. And and here they are again. This was in the Gulf Islands during a training session that we did with them. Here they're hanging out with people from, I think it was the Prince George Field Naturalists. They organized bio blitzes and basically spread the word. And we sent them to targeted parks that people in the province of BC who worked for the government wanted us, and particularly, to visit, because, for example, some of them didn't have management plans yet. And so we do this very much in collaboration. We direct the teams according to where we most want the observations. And I don't have to tell you about the wonderful places that you can get to with these diverse ecosystems. We were delayed for about a month by COVID this spring. We still got out when the parks opened, and we still ended up getting even more observations than we did the year before from our team and certainly from the general public. And here they are. This is the team at the end of the first summer. They're still friends. They're still happy after camping together, camping their way across the parks. Here we are working with, this was, I believe, in Garibaldi, with one of the park rangers who wanted to show us some interesting habitats that we could get to by canoe. This was funny. This is Brian Starzomski, the co-leader of the program, and his son. He and I did a road trip up to the top of BC and into Alaska for a BioBlitz, and we ran into a team of summer rangers, BC Park summer rangers, and they knew all about the program. They were all over it, and it was just a chance meeting. They knew how it all worked, and they were contributing to iNaturalist. And one of the reasons I'm smiling is because we got a trucker to take this photograph at a rest stop in, I believe this was Muncho Lake, and I'm looking past the photographer at this. So as that photo is being taken, a caribou and her calf were crossing the highway, and so there's the location. You can see it's been obscured by iNaturalist, right? They obscured it because caribou are a threatened species that people didn't want to be troubling. So when we started this program 2 springs ago, we had 243 observations of 70 threatened species. And these are all examples of photos that some of which I took of threatened species. And as of today, we have 8,000 observations of 577 threatened species that have now been documented in BC provincial parks. And let me just give you some highlights. This is going to be the way I'm going to close out the talk now, just with a few minutes now to show you some highlights of examples of the discovery you can get that can have some conservation value using community science. This was by someone I know, Ben Keane. He lives on Bowen Island. Keane Birder, good name. He's Keane, and he put in a photo of a species of tiger beetle. So he got it, put in a genus. And you can see it's in the South Grasslands. This is in the South Okanagan Grasslands. So this is one of the protected areas. It's part of the BC Parks system. And he wrote, looks a heck of a lot like Cicindela sexguttata to me, but that's obviously well out of range. There were a lot of them on the hillside. He put that comment in, and he didn't know what he had. And you can see somebody asked how close do you have to be. I mean, that's not the greatest photo in the world, is it? It's okay, but it's not exactly showing you the spots. Well, an expert chimed in and identified it as a Badlands tiger beetle. And look at the distribution. First of all, it's rarely seen at all in iNaturalist. There would be museum records and other records. And it's the second record for Canada in iNaturalist. There it is, right on the border, and there's one over here in Alberta. So it's a super rare beetle. And I'm not saying these are the only observations. They're not, right? It would be known from museum specimens for sure. But in iNaturalist, if you have a colorful beetle like that has so few dots, that's telling you something about its status. And it was a great discovery that he made. And again, he wasn't an expert. He's not a beetle expert. He saw something cool, took a photo, uploaded it to iNat, and the community observers came in and ID'd it. This is iNat, at its best. People are almost always very supportive, very positive. They tell you why they think things are what they are. I've never had a negative interaction, ever, in iNaturalist. 63,000 observations. Nobody's ever said, you moron, that's obviously not a such and such. They're very, very helpful and very positive. Here's another example I want to give you. So this is Carmanah-Walburn Provincial Park. I took this banner photo when I was there 2 summers ago. That was their homepage. This is out of date because I wanted to capture what we had at the time. I was teaching at Bamfield, a course, and I had my students. So we took 2 nights out and we drove over to Carmanah. We camped for 2 nights and did various surveys. We were doing mostly, we're doing aquatic and terrestrial biodiversity surveys, but of course I had them do an iNaturalist project, and they got points for how rare things were and how few other people had found them. And then I divided them into groups and said, okay, let's go. Let's see what you can find here in Carmanah. And they went crazy. Here they are at night, iNatting. We were actually looking for salamanders at the time, but they obviously got diverted into something else here. And we took photos of this thing, which I think both of those might be my photos. All those might be mine. I'm not sure. And I thought it was a yellow-spotted millipede, the one we have, which we all know around here. The spots, I must say, are a little faded for that species. It's not, that's what I called it. I had no reason to think it was otherwise, and put it into iNaturalist. And a couple of the students found them too. They were all over the place. But it turns out it was identified by an expert as being this thing, Tubafi levii, and it was the first ever record in iNaturalist. So the first time anybody anywhere in the world had put one into iNaturalist. Now that's not to say that it wasn't known for the region. There were records. It was known to be in that general part of the west coast of Vancouver Island up to near Bamfield, like Pachena Beach and Bamfield. So it was known to be in the region, but it hadn't been put into iNaturalist. And what is I think the point I want to make here is that, first of all, it was a fluke. I had no idea what it was. I was wrong. And it was corrected, and an expert nailed it and figured it out. But the other thing is that this is a species that was on COSEWIC's radar as a species that they might want to assess as an endangered species, because there were so few records in museum specimens and from some old papers. And so this is a meeting, this is what it looks like, a meeting of the Committee on the Status of Endangered Wildlife in Canada. This is the group of experts on threatened species that I've been working with for about a dozen years now. And that species was on their radar as a species that might be subject to a full status assessment report and a vote on discussion, like happens at one of these big meetings here. And so it was considered to be potentially a priority for the arthropod experts to bring to the big table with a full status report and all the review and expense that goes with it. But based on the fact that we discovered it was actually quite common in Carmanah, and Carmanah is a protected area, those records through iNaturalist suggested to the experts, our arthropod experts, that it was not a high priority. There were higher priority species that they could be looking at than that thing. And the result was it dropped down off their hit list. They're still it's still on a lower list, but it's not going to be coming to COSEWIC anytime soon. So we've saved COSEWIC a lot of time and effort assessing the status of something which, thanks to iNaturalist, we now know is probably in better shape than we had thought. So the last example I want to do to close out the talk. This is the grapple tail dragonfly. This is a draft status report, which is in progress right now for this species. It's super rare. Its entire distribution in Canada is restricted to about 5 locations in southwestern BC. And I just noticed, so it says draft status, do not cite or distribute without written permission from the chair of COSEWIC. So I guess I'm giving myself permission to show you the cover page of this draft report. We're going to be assessing it at a future meeting. Well, because this thing is a species that COSEWIC has in play right now, there was interest in trying to see how it's doing and going to some of the old sites where it was last seen. And so I organized a get-together with a couple of people to look for it. And it's been seen, I should say, it's been found in Malcolm Knapp Park, just above Maple Ridge, and also there's a location near in Cultus Lake. So it was known in a couple of sites. One of the sites where it was known is Davis Lake Provincial Park. So here you see where it is. We're north of Mission. This is a very out of the way, obscure park. You have to go part of the way as on a logging road. And And I should say that it is known to be found it lives on streams, not lakes. It's in streams, and the streams have to be warm. It's at the northern edge of its range. There has to be a warm outflow of a lake, okay? And it was discovered there 40 years ago and had not been seen since. Nobody had probably looked for it since. And so it literally a 40-year historical record for that lake. And when I saw that that was one of the locations, my heart sank. Because look at this article. Davis Lake, an abandoned, abused poster child for BC Provincial Park neglect. This is a biologist, Mike Pearson, holding up shotgun shells in a provincial park. This place is kind of the Wild West. The BC Parks system is grossly underfunded. They've lost a lot of their funding. They just don't have the capacity to enforce the rules in this place. And so I thought, oh my God, am I really going to go there? I did a reconnaissance though, and organized a trip with Brian Starzomski from UVic and also Jennifer Herron, who is the provincial endangered invertebrate specialist biologist, and she was very interested in it. So we got the three of us together, and there we are. There's Jennifer Herron, the provincial biologist. We just wore running shoes and walked in this stream. There's the habitat. This is the outlet lake from the lake. And here's Brian Starzomski. And what's on his head? What's on his hat? Well, of course, it's a grapple tail because we found them. As soon as I walked up to the stream, I saw one immediately, a grapple tail. And we saw lots of grapple tails. Here they are. It's a beautiful insect. And we found 16 of them in about a 700-meter stretch of the outflow of this lake. First time it had been seen in 40 years. And so now that information will go into the status report, which will be coming to the table for assessment in the future. And since then, I've also gone to several other potential sites. We found it in one new site, brand new site. Looked like it was the wrong habitat altogether. We thought it might be okay, but went in and found it in a new site. So that was nice. And this information now will all go into the status report. And of course, if you look at the banner, if you look at the project for Davis Lake, here's what it looks like right now. So there's my photo I put in, I created when I did the site. And look at what the most observed species is in that park. It's grappletail, because we photographed every one, and I made a trip later with an expert in dragonflies, and he took a bunch of photos as well. So we've managed to make it it's become iNat famous, I suppose, but it's just shows how much fun you can have when you can do these sorts of discoveries using iNaturalist, and then in this case promote the information with iNaturalist. So that's about it. I'm going to leave it there, and again, I'll just say that we're going to carry on. We want to get to 1 million observations in provincial parks, and give you some flavor of some of the things we can do with the information. We're developing some analytical tools to make it even more useful to the staff of the parks. And you don't have to be as gung-ho and crazy about this sort of stuff as I am. Just anybody who takes snaps some photos with their phone, you can upload it, and while you're out hiking or whatever, and then you can see what you can learn and what you can contribute to this kind of a community science project. So I want to acknowledge a few others. This last summer we had support from the Pacific Wildlife Foundation, and this year we also had support from the Sitka Foundation. We've really enjoyed working with them on this as well. So we'll be hopefully getting some funding and getting out there and doing it again next year. So I can leave it there. I'll give back control to Brian and Victoria, and if you have time for questions, I'm certainly happy to answer them.
Thank you, John. Fabulous. Victoria, I'll hand back to yourself or John to handle any questions, I guess.
Okay.
I think it's John and Christina Saramba who are going to moderate the questions here for us.
Okay. Thank you, John. Thank you, Christina.
Yes, I've got a question in the chat from Linnell, and she asked, does iNaturalist work with all products or only iPhones?
Oh, anything. You can,
So it's browser based as long
Oh
as
yeah,
you get to the internet.
yeah. Any camera too, right? You can use a point and shoot. Literally, you could take your old slides, scan them, and then upload them to iNat. So as long as you've got a photo and a date and a location, you can throw it in there.
Okay, and we're just waiting. You can either put your question in the chat or you can put on a reaction. And I've got to flip screens. We've got so many participants. My little laptop only takes half the participants at a time, so bear with me. Oh, I had a question for you, John.
Sure.
Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about, especially for young children. I understand that iNaturalist has got a companion product designed for children called Seek.
Yes. So Seek is, and it's not just for children. Seek is an app that you can have on your phone, and it's amazing actually what it can do. It's not really so much for uploading to iNaturalist, and that's one reason why it's good. Look, for example, for kids, for privacy reasons, parents may not want them to have an account and all that sort of thing. But you can use your phone and you just hold it up to something and it gives you a suggestion of the ID. Like you don't even have to click something in real time. Like literally I could be, I'm staring at a screen of faces, but if you were, if you're in the outdoors, I could be going like this and it'll be suggesting, actually be holding it that way. It'll suggest to me what each of you are, what each species is that I'm looking at. And so, yeah, it is popular with school children. It's sort of perhaps a bit of a gateway drug into iNaturalist once they get a bit older. But sometimes I use it in the field if I see something in it and I need to have it's just bugging me. I need to remember what something is. Hold my phone up to it, and it gives me the suggestion if it can tell.
Thank you, John. I believe we have a question from Catherine. Did you want to unmute her mic?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
For anyone, you can hold down your space bar and that will temporarily unmute you while you hold it down.
Go ahead, Catherine.
So the simplest, I just want to be clear. So the simplest thing we can do is to take a picture, upload it, and then it will automatically add it to the projects. Like so I don't need to do any other things.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. There are some kinds of projects where you have to add them to them, but 95% of them, you don't do anything. It automatically adds it to the project.
Okay.
I'm glad you asked that. So yeah, you don't have to do any extra stuff. Once you've done the upload. So for example, those photos that I uploaded that were from Colony Farm, they all appeared in the Colony Farm project without my saying anything about them. So
just for clarity, all the projects are defined within a GPS area. So if your photo is taken within a GPS area, it'll be added to that project. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. The photo, the iNat knows where you were as long as you had the location services turned on. If you take it with your phone, and if you don't have that, then, or if you took it with a camera that doesn't have a GPS, then you map it. But once you've mapped it, it shows up in the project. Just mentioned too, there are other kinds of projects. You can have a project based on species. There's a project, I think, there could be the butterflies of Coquitlam. Anybody could create that project, and then it would be based on both the location, that it has to be within Coquitlam, and it has to be a butterfly. And you wouldn't have to tell it either of those two things, it would know.
We've got a question from the chat here.
Mm-hmm.
And Nick would like to know, if you misidentify something, will the correct ID be automatically inserted? Or can you rely perhaps on an expert to correct it for you?
It's the latter. So if the photo recognition makes suggestions, but it's up to you to agree to accept the suggestion or not. if you make a mistake, then usually within a reasonable period of time, experts will correct the mistake. And when they do, so they'll say they think it's something else. When they do, I should have pointed this out, there's a little button up in the top right-hand side of your screen that is your notifications. And if you click on it, it'll actually list all the observations of yours in which there's been some sort of activity. Somebody's agreed with it, or made a comment, or made an alternative suggestion.
John?
Hey.
Hi. I've been using it to look up the names of a tremendous variety of trees we see in Kerrisdale on our walks through the street. This is our new neighborhood, by the way. We moved from West Van. And so I entered, I click on what do you see, and it comes with this list of a number of suggestions, and say after exploring it comes, I find that it's the third suggestion that it's most accurately matches what I see. Then what do I do?
You said if it's the third suggestion that is correct?
Yeah, and then
click on it.
Just click on it.
Yep, and then it goes in and you're good.
Is it registered it somewhere?
Yeah, it'll put the name on. So this is something that happens at the upload stage, right?
Oh, then that an upload button.
Yeah. Are you uploading the way I just showed, like from your laptop, or are you doing it from your phone?
My phone.
Well, from the phone, it'll offer you suggestions, and you can just click on the one that you agree with, and it'll pop that name into it.
Okay.
Same as I did on the laptop. So you just ask it. It'll say yes. It says you can say, "What did I see?" or whatever that question is. It offers suggestions, and you take the suggestion that you like, or you reject those, and you can put in your own name.
Okay.
So you definitely, these are only suggestions. It's important for people to realize that. You saw that it made 2 mistakes in the uploads I just did, and so you do have to overrule it sometimes. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. If you and Jay, if you run into trouble, just shoot me an email sometime. I'd be happy to walk you through it.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, while we're waiting for perhaps 1 or 2 more questions, there's a question from Deborah regarding ID. Deborah, do you want to unmute your mic?
I did, thanks. So I'm just wondering, because I upload typically from my phone, and for instance, I had uploaded, and it suggested Xerom phalina, which is a type of fungi. Yeah. And it says it still needs an ID, and yet somebody else came in and said they just wanted to name it as fungi, including lichens, so the less specific. So what do you do in a case like that?
Well,
that's
yeah. Well, what that means is somebody has said that they don't think it's in that genus.
Oh.
So that they're saying, yeah, it's a fungus, but they don't think it. They think it's not. You've got the wrong genus, and in that case, you basically need to just be patient and hope that somebody else comes in and sharpens up that ID for you. If it's in, I mean, that genus, that's a gilled mushroom, isn't it? Xerom, the thing you described, does it have gills?
Yes.
Okay. So they didn't have to go all the way back to fungi, including lichens. They could have gone to gilled mushrooms, agaricales.
Okay.
That's what I would have done. And so you could, if you want to get it to agaricales, you could just type agaricales and try to get it a little closer, right? But otherwise, fungi are one of the toughest ones to identify from photos, Deborah. I'm not very good at fungi. I'm very I often will just say agaricales or, you know, bolitacei if it's a bolete, you know, and I just leave it like that. And I hope that maybe somebody can come in and help out. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's
You
helpful.
bet. Sure.
Okay, I'd like to, at this point, say perhaps if there is one more question, if someone would like to ask one more. If not, then I'd like to call upon Victoria to make some the thank you, and then we can move on to the next part of the meeting. Are there any other final questions for John?
Okay, well, I'll take over, and thank you, John, very much for this excellent presentation of the power of iNaturalist. Yes, you can see some clapping hands coming up, and everybody else is, if they're not clapping, they certainly feel like clapping. The question I wanted to ask you, if it's not belaboring the point of the question and answer bit here, is we're really looking around for socially distanced activities that we can do. And so this idea of the teams you had at Carmana, perhaps we could get together in small groups and just learn amongst ourselves with each other, iNaturalist, maybe contribute to the Como Lake project or even the Blakeburn project. I mean, because the observations go in multiple times. We don't have to come up with our rare species. Yeah. So perhaps we'll set something up like that once this 2-week period is over.
Yes, yeah, you can certainly, you know, whenever I'm out, I mean, usually birding is sort of my main focus, but I have my phone and I have my big camera, and so I just take photos opportunistically as I'm out, and so it is definitely something you can do, you know, in teams. You can stay 2 meters apart, mm-hmm. and show people things. You know, we're all kind of used to doing that sort of thing now. We've had months to get good at that kind of thing of you know, being out together but not together, and so you know, I ran in when I was at Colony Farm. I ran into 3 people I knew, all members of the club, and the 4 of us were standing in a perfect box on the dike. You know, so yeah, it lends itself to quite well to that. And you know, we'll have to see what Dr. Bonnie says about being outdoors, as long as they're sticking to that, which is kind of the only thing we were able to do, a lot of us, this summer, right? It was the one thing that we could still do. You know, I think iNat was kind of there waiting for us and gives us some extra focus when we're out. I would also add that it's amazing how many people joined iNaturalist because they didn't have anything else that they could do. So a lot of people got into identifying things like experts in iNaturalist. Suddenly all my butterflies of BC got identified by, you know, the expert of BC butterflies. He literally wrote a book on butterflies of BC. I don't know, I haven't asked him, but I'm guessing it's because he was tired of being confined to quarters.
Well, you're doing a great job of promoting it, and I expect that there's going to be a little tiny bump in the number of observers on iNaturalist after this evening's presentation. So thank you very much again, John.
Happy to help, and thank you for having me.
So we have Christina Saramba. Don't go away yet. We've got Christina. She's got a few slides just to pop up to illustrate some announcements that she has. So Christina, if you could share your screen.
Will do.
Take it over.
Here we go. Are you seeing the nature investments?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Perfect. Well, this is just to give you an update, our membership, about some of the activities that our conservation committee has been up to, and in particular about encouraging the federal government and asking them to support an investment in nature. And this came about because Nature Canada, in which some of you know is kind of almost like our mothership, they represent over 800 nature organizations in Canada and 100,000 members, including us. And they're the voice in Ottawa for us. And they started a campaign back in October of last year called Make Room for Nature. And they asked us, they sent us a kit, and they asked us to meet with our MPs to encourage the government to continuing to meet the goals that they had set for protecting land and oceans. So the campaign's called Make Room for Nature. And we did go out and start this in January, meeting with the MPs, but we also went off today and had a meeting with our local MP, Ron McKinnon. We met with him in January as well. We have asked Nellie Shin for a meeting, but we've yet to hear back from her, but we'll continue to work on that. So today we had myself and John and Lori and Edie, who were on the Conservation Committee, and Victoria joined us as well, along with Ron. And we were telling him that, you know, we really appreciated to meet with him because this is a follow-up from what we were discussing in January before COVID came. And then, of course, priorities for kind of changed. And we wanted to revisit that because there's going to be a fall mini budget coming up, apparently. So the purpose of our meeting today was once again to review how we support and encourage the government on their commitments to protect 25% of the land and ocean by 2025 and 30% by 2030. And they've almost met their goals for 2020, which was to be 17% of land and 10% of oceans. And I think they got to 13 and something very close anyways. We also wanted to indicate that we feel as a club and our members, in conjunction with many other nature organizations, that it's really important, perhaps more important than ever, that nature really needs to be at the heart of the recovery, the planned recovery for our nation. And so we were there today asking that Ron McKinnon, if he would support and be our voice to the caucus and to represent and ask Chrystia Freeland, which is our Minister of Finance, and also the Minister Wilkinson, who's the Minister of Environment and Climate Change, that they would make budget investments. This is a neat long-term investment starting today, starting with the fall mini budget of $4.8 billion over 5 years. And this is based on the Green Budgets Coalitions. That's their recommendations. And certainly Ron is very supportive. And he has agreed that he would present to Chrystia Freeland and to Minister Wilkinson of what we're asking. So that was a bit of a win, and we're also very happy to be participating in Nature Canada's campaign amongst the other organizations across Canada, because we have to have a voice. They have to know that we're out here and we're interested, and these are important things to us. So there's something that you can do individually as well as members to support the green recovery. So the more voices that they hear from, the better it is, of course. And so you can actually write Chrystia Freeland and our local MP, so it might be Nellie Shin, it might be Ron McKinnon, it might be both of them, of course, to ensure that they are knowing that it's important that they invest in nature. So an easy way to do that, actually, would be to visit Nature Canada's website. They actually have an online electronic letter, which you could modify to customize more for yourself, but it gives you an idea of what you'd be asking for. And then if you use this particular page, it'll automatically copy it to your local MP. You don't even have to figure out who that is. So that's based on your postal code. Now I have to tell you that if you just do search Room for Nature on the web, you're going to end up going to a bunch of different option pages that come up. So I have put the URL at the bottom right corner of the slide, as you can see, if you want to mark that down. If you don't want to mark it down and you are interested in taking this step, which will only take you a few minutes of your time, and you don't want to write this down today, but we are interested in doing it, please feel free to send an email or to us at Burke Mountain Naturalist, which is just Burke and then mtnnats@gmail.com, or contact one of us and we will give you this information. It'll be a little bit easier then for you to find it. So
can we put it on the website?
I'm sorry, Edie, can put it on our own website? Yes, that's a great idea. I will go on the website tomorrow morning and it'll go into the news section, which you can see, it's like a little feed down at the bottom of the homepage. Thank you, Edie, for that suggestion. Good idea. Please, please, please do this, because the more that they see that they're supporters, the greater strength it gives a voice to Nature Canada when they're there representing us in Ottawa. And Ron did ask us, he did mention, he said, well, if it's important to you as an organization and to your members about protecting important habitat, he said, you are aware, of course, of the West Bolinas Island a fundraiser, and yes, we are. We did post it to Facebook, but we just wanted to let you know because this doesn't fall under federal. And so they are actually raising money. It's called the BC Parks Foundation. There's the 2 Bolinas Islands, or near Nanaimo and Parksville. And it's 100 acres, this particular one. And it's actually in John Reynolds. You may be able to actually say a little bit more about this too. But it has a number of endangered species on it, including the Gary Oak system and some other habitat. And so they're wanting to preserve it. And so their target is 1.7 million. They do have an anonymous donor that'll meet half of that, matching. So they only need $250,000 to go, which isn't really all that much when you put a little bit as a donation. So since our organization isn't having a silent auction this year, where we normally fundraise and raise money for important things that in our community, we just wanted to mention this in case you might be interested in this good cause. And that is everything I had
Christina,
to say.
this is John. If I can interject, since you mentioned me.
Yes.
I definitely would support this campaign. The BC Parks Foundation, these are the people that we're partnered with who do the publicity for our INAT program. And, they have a track record of winning. They created a new, provincial park last year, to same sort of thing, a winning fundraising campaign. And I will certainly would support what you're suggesting here. I think that when it seems that all else is bleak, we need wins like this. So I think it's a great idea. And so yeah, and I think it's a time limited fundraising program. I think they have a deadline when they need to raise the funds, but I think it's great if the BMN can get behind that.
Yes, so this year you won't be buying knitted toques or cards or something like that at our silent auction. So if you have a couple of extra dollars that you can spare, that would be great. Thank you. That's everything for me.
Thank you very much, Christina. And thank you also for arranging these meetings with some of our local MPs. I think this is the second time that you've met with Ron McKinnon. And so you're really becoming best buddies, and that's a really, really good way to go. And I'm sure he's as impressed with you as the rest of us are too in managing these meetings. Now at this point, we did have on our agenda that I would open up the floor to you, but I see it is going on 9 o'clock. We've lost a few of our participants, so I'm just thinking that perhaps we should end the evening here on this very nice high note of the Bolinas Island. So not hearing anyone pipe up saying, oh no, don't end it yet.
No objections.
I'm going to wish you all a very good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure you've enjoyed it and learned a lot, and we'll see you in December.
Yep.
Thanks very much. Thanks again, John Reynolds. And thank you, Brian, for setting this up and doing your initial introduction. And thank you to the Serembas for moderating the question and answer so excellently. Yes.
Welcome. Shall the executive stay on?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a good rest of the evening.
Bye.
Good night. Good night. Folks.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Good night.